Welcome to the COVID positive episode of the Curry Shepherd podcast. Don't worry, if you're listening to this in headphones or anything or in your car, I have on my mask, so don't worry yourself. Just sanitize, wear your mask too, and I ain't gonna spread it, but I'm officially COVID positive. You know, the numbers last week was 1,000. 2 days for the week, we had numbers as high as 1,000. I shouldn't laugh at this. This is not funny. Well, as a man, I like to do my part and contribute. So when the numbers high and record breaking, I want to be a part of that. So I'm officially COVID positive. So I'm going to try to get through this episode with a mask on. I'm trying my best. Nobody else in the house, thank God, is showing any symptoms or any signs of COVID. So far, so good. And these are the people who are taking care of me. So I want to make sure that everybody's safe, and I want to make sure that you're safe as a listener too. And you know something? The numbers get so high that now when I call people to tell them they are COVID, you know what's the most common response I hear? Hey, me too. How you feeling? It's like, what the hell is going on? So this episode, listen, I'm reaching out to everybody who get COVID and survive, who have COVID now and fighting up with it. We wishing you the best. This is an uplifting spirits episode. Although I'm going to talk about my COVID experience, so anybody who didn't have it before, I go and talk about my experience. I don't know if you could expect anything, but I'll just tell you what I went through or what I'm going through and what I'm doing. And hopefully, if any of it work for you, great. I you know me. I mean, I'm a doctor. I always telling you about my own experience. But I just want to say that they have this, it's not an easy thing and it's not a nice thing. Let me say that, right? While I might be laughing and talking about it, anybody who went through it before going through it now, understand that you see that talk about it's just a little cold and it's just a little flu and thing. This thing is not a nice thing. But I always go back to my boy Hector. Remember Major Hype? Major Hype had a character named Hector. I used to look forward to seeing him every Wednesday morning. Because Hector used to say, no matter where's your troubles in life, just dance.
Yo, are you ready? Yeah, we ready. Yeah.
Just dance.
Yes. Just dance your stress away. Just
dance COVID away.
Just dance. Troubles have you down. Just dance them away.
So dance your stress away. And dance COVID away. Troubles have you down.
Just dance them away. And we dancing. And so we dancing. Yes, we dancing. We dancing. Yeah, we dance.
So we dance.
Come let me dance.
Let we dance.
Yeah, let me dance. Let me dance. I say, forget all of the trouble. Yeah, just dance them away. Forget all of your worries. And dance them away. Comme ça. Dance it. Comme ça. Dance it. Just dance your stress away. Just dance bad vibes away. Just
Don't let COVID get you down.
Just dance them away. Just dance your stress away. Just dance bad vibes away. Just troubles have you down. Just dance them away.
Hey, you see this? You know, I can't excite myself too much. You know? All that dance is stress away. Let me sit still a little bit.
Come let me dance. Yeah, let me dance.
Is the voice of your own Marshall and Problem Child sweet?
Forget about the rough days. Just dance them away. I say forget about those who let you down. Comme ça. Dance it.
Listen, just released this morning. This Monday morning. It just released. And this is my favorite song. This is my anthem going forward. So here are the Chronicles, right? Here are the COVID Chronicles. I will introduce it to it. Listen, they see that Marshall, I will play it over and over. I feel like to play it for the whole episode because it's summing up the little battle with COVID, boy. You had to figure out whatever dancing means to you, you know what I mean? You had to figure out what your dance is. But you can't let this thing hold you down, you know, because all that talk about is just a flu and thing. I don't know who. For all who were it was just a flu and they had no symptoms, why glad for you. But I'm telling people who haven't had it before, I hope that your experience is that it's just a flu and it has no set of symptoms and things, because this is not a nice thing. So I could tell you all about my story. Right here what happened. I went by somebody who is very familiar to me and very comfortable to me, and I passed by them. And then when I leave there, 2 days later, they call and tell me, hey, somebody in the house test positive, So I say, oh, Lord. And when I go, at my fault, really, when I go by people who I'm familiar with, I glad to take off the mask. I just take off my mask one time. As I reach by, come out of that car and I go by people, I feeling like I good. So I ain't doing that no more. I just want to put it out there. If I come home by you and I keep on my mask whole time, don't feel no way. Don't feel no how. I can't make. But once I've heard that after the 2 days, I say, all right, isolation time immediately. So I tell Stacey, I say, here what's going on? COVID protocols, because we had a little thing in place since 2 years ago when COVID started. We say, well, all right, we have a room designated for anybody who have COVID will stay in that room. If anybody else, if the rest of the house don't have it, we will take care. We will put a little table outside. That way you will come and get your food or your drink or whatever you need. And we kind of say, all right, we will take care of one another through this thing. And the way the place, gratefully, the place designed where that room have its own toilet and bath and have its own back door. Well, that's what we call a marriage door. To make sure that a back door you can kick out if things get hard, you know what I mean? So thankfully we have that. And so the backyard is mine, or whoever had COVID, the backyard is yours. The front yard and the rest of the house is for everybody else, and people taking care of you. So I'm very, very grateful for my wife, Stacey Villarreal. She listened. Oh, Shepherd Bab, I mean. She didn't taking care of me. And listen, I'm miserable when I'm sick. And I'm miserable when I'm normal, just sick like cold and flu. So COVID miserable is our next story. So from that moment, I have been in isolation and quarantine, and gratefully it working a little bit because neither she nor Zachary showing any symptoms. That is a relief for me. So at least they up and about and they could get stuff done and go to school and what they need to do. So and bring me a lot of food. You know what I mean? So that working out. In terms of what happened the first few days after I heard it, nothing really happened. I wasn't feeling anyhow. Well, when in hindsight, usually on a morning I get up and ride bike, right? So the morning after I find out, usually I'll put on something, upon football, upon something I could watch a little YouTube video or movie or series, and I will get through the hour relatively easily. And I find the first day, this after the morning after I get the news, it was a struggle. 15 minutes felt like a long time. And it's not that I was out of breath or anything. What was happening was I just feel like I didn't have the energy. So I'm not tired or out of breath, but I just can't go longer than 50 minutes. It's like, what the hell going on? And I pushed myself. I went for 30. I reached half hour. I rest for about 10 minutes. I felt like I've struggled through. And the next morning was the same exact thing. But of course, at that point, I ain't know nothing. So I ain't paying it no mind. I just thinking to myself, boy, you ain't lazy mode. You ain't really doing the work. You ain't battling through. You know what I mean? I like to fight through my hour. Even if I'm tired, I'll make it. But just couldn't make it. I was tired. And then by the third day, I started to get a little sinus acting up. I don't know if it's coming through my voice now, but before my sinuses get clogged up, that's what's usually happening to me just before I get the flu or the cold and that kind of thing. So when I see that, I say, all right, I tell Stacey, listen, I'm starting to get symptoms now. This isn't looking good. And by the end of that day, at that point, I check my temperature every hour or two, since I hear the news. And I started to see the temperature rising past 37. So I had them 2 Panadine one time. And remember that, I will tell you why I do in this episode, but me know what will work for you. Everybody's symptoms so different and thing, and hopefully you have no symptoms. Hopefully you don't get it. And if you get it, it's smooth. But I had them 2 Panadine one time, and the night now, and I want to tell you this, right? All the old talk about COVID. When you know that you have a virus that kills so much people in Trinidad and Tobago already, and globally, it is not a nice thing. Mentally, it's rough. So you see, before you go and sleep every night, my anxiety on all. Because your boy feeling like he ain't gonna wake up. When you talk about the morning, when you talk about gratitude on a morning, when you see I open my eye, the first thing I look to see is if I'm still on earth. As I open my morning, I said, this is earth? I said, all right, good. Because you never know if you're going to be better than earth or worse than earth. You know what I'm saying? So when I see that fever come up and I take the 2 Panadol, I try my best not to take no drugs, Boy, I wrap up in some sheet there. I take off the air conditioner, I lock up that room. I say, I'm going and is either the fever dead or I dead in here. Report we ain't surviving this night. I wrap up tight in a few blankets well and then no air in the room. Well, I wake up late that night, completely drenched. When I tell you drenched, my clothes drenched, I drenched, the sheets, everything drenched. I had to get up and change them sheets and thing one time. And after that, thankfully, the next morning, all the fever was gone. So the fever dead. But I had to change quick and unwrap them thing before I did too, but the fever didn't make it. And since then, gratefully, I didn't have no fever. The symptoms start getting... One of the things that was bothering me, or still bothering me, is that I started getting a chest pain. By that next day, once I started getting chest pain, I said, all right, time to call and let them do a test. And Stacy gratefully get somebody who is come home and do the test. And they came home. That was the hardest PCR test I do. The man say he had to count to 10 to get a good sample. But the man is starting the count when he reaching his nose. You know, he wants to reach his final destination, which is somewhere in your chest. It look like through your nose. And when it taking about 10 seconds to reach his final destination, then he starts to count to 10. Man counting slow. It was some pressure. And remember, I say my sinuses congested and thing already. Yeah? And boy, listen, that man, after he take it out and go in and put it back in the vial, you know he make a mistake and drop the thing on the ground, the tester, the Q-tip, or whatever it's called it, and had to do it over, boy. And he's like, oh my God, this never happened. I was like, yeah, just do it over. I don't want no smalls, I don't want no explanation, just do it over. And he do it over, and they took about 12 hours, they call me and they say positive. So when they called from the lab, the guy told me, he said, listen, try and take vitamin D3, B12, so D as in dog, right? I know I'm talking through this mass. So vitamin D3, B12, zinc, and vitamin C. So try and get as much vitamin C as you could get. He said, don't forget to take the B12. He said, keep in mind that your body putting up a fight against this virus. He asked me if I was vaccinated and all that, because I took the 2 vaccines. Sinopharm is the vaccine I take too. And I didn't get the booster yet. Actually, last week was the week I was supposed to go and get the booster. So now I had to figure out how I'm going to get a booster and what was the situation with that. But he was saying that your body putting up a fight against this thing. He said, don't underestimate it. He said, even though you're feeling good and you're not feeling any symptoms, remember, you need to drink plenty of fluids, get your vitamins, get your rest, because your body putting up a fight. And listen, so said, so done. Because outside of those symptoms I tell you about so far, one of the biggest symptoms, and everybody who I talk to having the same issue, you see the fatigue, you see the tiredness, it's real. When I tell you, when this episode done. However long I could make for, because you could drop asleep on the spot where you're standing up. This fatigue is indescribable. I went through all kind of thing before, you know. But nothing like this way. Let me put it this way. When you get up and you go and bathe, after you bathe, I had to sleep off that bath for 2 hours. I had to sleep. That's just a lot of work I put in. So you're tired. I had some partners who on the field by us. They was planning to do some work this Saturday morning. So them guys come out and work early. So I usually get up in the morning early and take a little walk around the yard and, you know what I mean, get a little stretch, you know. So first I like old talk. I call one of them on the phone and I get them some talk about how they ain't working all day, only resting and thing, and I laughing hard and thing. I feeling good. You know, when I reach back inside, I have to go and sleep like this. I would dig up the field and do all the work. I'm tired in real life. That fatigue and tiredness is not, even if you're doing like mental work. Like sometimes I respond to some emails and just thinking too long, you're feeling tired. You have to go and sleep all over the day. And when the night comes now, I can't sleep. Like I insomnia. And I tell you, it's afraid to sleep in the week. I'm afraid my eye ain't open, just in case, you know what I mean? But so far so good, and thank God, I mean, I getting through it, and that's the worst of the symptoms I face. Every now and again, I sort of feel a little chilly and thing, but at this point, I'm not feeling much. My sinuses still congested. It's not as bad as it was before. That chest pain, I started getting a chest pain on about day 2, and the chest, well, I figure it's my lungs, because you're getting the chest pain, a sharp chest pain, when you lie down on your back is real bad. I couldn't lie down on my back for too long at all. I couldn't lie down for too long on a hole. If I lie down for too long, it was piercing. And later on in the day, it started going straight through to my back. It's like somebody shoots you with a bow and arrow, and it went straight through your chest and come out your back. That's how the pain was feeling. And anxiety again, because I'm only picturing my lungs collapsing, and I'm going in the general hospital. I just frightened. I'm trying to stay out of the hospital system. That's so far so good. In terms of what I did, the only drugs I take is the Panadine. And I take a Allegra D a day for the sinus congestion, but that didn't work. So I think I take a Claritin one day and I take a Allegra D the next day. And Neither of them thing do nothing. I don't know if I was supposed to take it for more days, but once it didn't work the first time, I done with that. And Stacy, Dr. Stacy Shepherdbath, bring me a potion that she says she get from her friend. She and her friend combined to make a doctor. And she cut up some onion, garlic. Always feel like making these things up, and this woman obeying me still. And she done married already. That's settled. Name change and everything. A hook. But she still obeying. She make garlic, onion, some orange peel it look like, and a set of salt. I don't know if it's Epsom salt. Me know what kind of salt it is you. Woman tell she use, but I using that. And steaming twice a day. I can't tell you really what's helping and what not helping. Because it's probably the combination of things, but I steaming and thing every day. So I never had any coughing. I think maybe the first day I start coughing a little bit, maybe a couple of times every couple of hours I cough. And my throat still feeling like it wants to start to get sore. So I don't know if that steaming and thing help, but I never had any problems breathing. In terms of the scent and the taste, there's something that hard for me to describe. Now, you think of what when your wife tried to obey and boil garlic and onion and orange peel and all these salts and things. Think of what that will smell like, right? And it took me a while. It took me a couple days to realize that I put my whole face down in this thing for 15 minutes and steaming and trying to breathe in as much as I could breathe in. I never really smelled it. It wasn't smelling like nothing. It took me a while. Even the tasting. There was a day she would give me some Chinese soup. You know what I mean? When I was sick, I like my little chicken corn soup. I usually bring me back, and I ain't feeling to eat. And I put the some soy sauce. But you know when you throw too much in them soy sauce, the Chinese kind, ghetto Chinese, not uptown Chinese, the salt one. I thought a little too much. So the whole soup went from white to black. I said, oh God, I was feeling for the soup so bad and I spoiled it. But then when I tasted it, I said, but no, it ain't so salty, man. It me realize it's taste mean tasting. I am not tasting anything. That is the hardest one for me to describe. Anybody who went through it before understand, but if you never went through it before, this one is hard to describe. You know what you're eating generally. So the other day she brings starch mango because like I can't get coffee on her own and I had a beg for a cup of coffee. Apparently she and the doctor friend, whatever they say coffee ain't good for you with COVID. I know what they come up with that. And the milk, I can't put no milk in nothing. They say milk give mucus and I can't come outside and make my own things. So I just had whatever they give me I had to take. She am right what she want me. But with the starch mango now, starch mango is one of my favorite things. She bring that in the morning with the fruits. I eat fruits every morning. So when she bring that, I was glad. I mean, I'm feeling for it. At that moment, I was like, right, good. And boy, I started suck that mango, and all I could tell you is, you know, is a mango you're eating because you're seeing the mango, right? And the juice and thing, it's satisfying. That's the best way I can describe it. It's satisfying. It's feeling just as satisfactory as when you eat a starch mango, but you're not tasting it. So when I eating inside, I was like, just like when you're eating a mango. That's always going eating mango, right? But you're not tasting nothing. I do. Some people say they're tasting certain things. The only thing I taste for the past week is tomato. If I eat a tomato, it's tasting like a normal tomato, but other than that, I'm not tasting anything, I don't smell nothing. You can put perfume there. I put some hand sanitizer on my hand. And it's when I smell, I say, this thing like it's no scent. You know, it's a little alcohol scent. Me realize the smell I ain't smelling. So one of the things I would tell anybody who get COVID to be, I wear pajamas for the last 4 or 5 days. Me changing from pajamas. I tell you, I'm so tired, I'm sleepy. But you remember that your scent's gone, so you have to put a timer on your phone to bathe because your normal signals that will tell you to bathe, they're not working very well. You're thinking you're clean, but you're not clean. And even though you're by yourself, nice to take a little bath and think, but I tell you, the bath like a day walking, I'll take a bath like a 10 days. I'll take a full sleep after that. So I mean, that's pretty much it for my feelings in terms of symptoms or anything I'm dealing with. And I'm still going through it now. I'm still congested. I don't think it's as bad. My chest, the chest pain, I'm saying my chest pain. The chest pain's pretty much gone. Every now and again I feel something, but I think I'm pretty good. In terms of what happened home here, we have the little isolation. We have a little walk corridor. It look like it's exactly the way the house design is a little open plan area in the front, and then there's a corridor with bedrooms on the left and right hand side. No? And apparently when Zachary leave his bedroom to go out in the front by the kitchen, he had to pass my bedroom door. This man is not breathing in the corridor. He take it off running through the corridor, not breathing. He out of breath by the time you reach the next side. And from the time I tell him I had COVID last time, next time I see Zachary, he in a hat, a shades, and a mask. This man determined not to get COVID. So look at him taking the right things, right? He taking all the precaution that he could possibly take. So I'm just hoping that it didn't pass on to nobody else. But yeah, that's pretty much the COVID experience in a nutshell. Now, what I will say is that I'm very, very grateful to have some friends or family and friends who checking up on me all the time, because one of the things that you had to pay a little attention to, I would advise anybody to take this seriously. You see, the isolation and thing have a mental health thing to play in it. And I remember people talking a lot about the idea of vitamin D and getting sun and how critical it is and that kind of thing. I remember asking Neola this some time ago about what do you do in isolation and stuff. She said even if you can't leave the room, she was saying just get your face out the window, like try to look out the window. And to be honest with you, that helping a lot. Like one of the things that I feel that help me feel good is when I take a walk outside in the sun. That's the only thing I could say that. And when I eat fruits too, when I go out in the sun, immediately I start to feel a little bit of relief. And that's that might be the only thing. The vitamins, all those things. Not saying that the vitamins and the steam and I drink ginger and turmeric every morning. I'm not saying those things not working, but when you go out in the sun and you come back inside, you just feel a little bit revived. You just feel healthy. You feel like the COVID leave your body a little bit. So the woman is right, you know, sun killing COVID. But yeah, grateful for family and friends. Some of us who are affected by COVID right now have some family in the States. Like this is their second time. They are like COVID guinea pigs. I don't know what's going on in the streets. They said they had the Delta variant. Now they are the Omicron variant. You know, people when they go in a food court, they be giving out a little stick with chicken. And they come and tell you sample the chicken. Like them just sampling every version of COVID that I have. But I was grateful to talk to them and get some of their experience and some of their tips and things. Because I mean, when you get, if you get, you will try anything, you know, because you have to remember the mental state you're in when you find out you have a virus that many people who you know too had died from. So careful with the isolation. The isolation could be like making a jail, checking your mental health and all them things so that you're feeling good, you're getting outside a little bit and stuff. Don't get yourself so isolated that you run down into a depression. But I have some friends and family who check on me every day. To salute my mother. You know, they say prayers of your mother is a hell of a thing, you know, boy. And you can hear the concern when she call me every day and we talking through things, but how positive attitude and thing helping me to feel very uplifted and good. My father, every day I talking to him, checking in, making sure I go in, my brothers and sisters, all of them, everybody concerned. I have a little brotherhood here in Riverview Park, calling me, checking up on me, they gave me a little old talk and thing, which nice. Boy, listen, don't underestimate how nice it is to just laugh no matter where you're going through. I went through some medical things now. Dengue fever is one of the worst things I ever had. This don't compare to dengue fever. In terms of the feeling the way you feel, dengue fever is the worst sort of feeling I had, boy. But you know, just somebody who is telling, and I remember going through a thing at a partner of mine named Many Faces. I was always tell Stacy, I say, you might see me with friends and plenty people who guys hang around all the time and thing. I say, but when you see I fall sick or something happened to me, you know what I mean? I just want you to watch the people who you will see show up by this gate very, very quick. It might be people who like when they ask you, you know, certain people you have wrong and they might be this and they might be that, or you don't hear from them and you still check for them. It has some people who show up regardless. I have some uncles and think them will show up regardless of what happened. One of them people is a man named Many Faces. And he different, eh? One of the things about him is he not coming to show up here with no sad face to say, oh God, you're sick, you're dengue fever, you're this, oh God. Time man coming to tell you, who sold you like you're on your deathbed. And listen, that little laugh that you go laugh the even worse at times. I remember a time, I think I tell a little story at a time, right? I had an abscess. And my whole jaw, everything was swelled up, all my chest swollen. That I mean, even that I telling you about, this sickness that I have now, not comparing to that. But boy, you know, I frightened them time because I go and by the doctor and tell me, boy, this could be it. That thing going to travel. And boy, he tell me, send me for HIV test. I waiting for these test results. Me tell nobody this, eh? And I remember my mother come and tell me many faces outside. And I didn't want to see nobody, but the way I looking and thing, I didn't want nobody see me and thing. She said, come, go and look for him. He come to see you. Come, go and... I said, all right. I come outside. I had to hold my face when I walk in. I fuss it swollen. I talk about hospital level sick you know. When I walk, I'll never forget that when I walk out in the gallery, as he see me, he say, boy, soldier like the AIDS acting up on you. This is not a joke to make. But when you have friends who's calling and Gail old talk and thing, it's a nice thing too in a way. So salute to my guys around the neighborhood here and friends who just checking on you all the time, you know what I mean? But most importantly, I had to say that you see Stacy Villarreal Shepherd Bab. She holding it down. I ain't like. I don't think I could have been in a better situation or worse situation with a better person. Now you say there's nobody who I would want to be alongside than Stacy in a situation like this, because I is a troublesome fella, and when I'm sick, I'm more troublesome. Every day I just call, right? In the earlies. This is before I get into thing, because I and all, you know, I like a joke. So when I call the phone, she concerned, when I answer, I used to say, and now the end is near. Every single day, 2-3 times a day I call and I'm singing that song till she had 1 foot in the grave. But listen, that girl getting everything I need for me, all the food, whatever I feel for, any craving I have, all the accent. She for farine and sweet bread for the longest while. And you know the cravings is a funny thing. My appetite real open, I'm hungry every minute, but I can't taste nothing. So it makes sense feeling for nothing, as I might say, I was sweet bread, but then when I come, I can't taste the sweet bread. So I didn't see what's the point. But I couldn't have anybody better in my corner to just stand up there and you're feeling good, because remember that little hint of depression. I just want to warn everybody about that, because you have some, and every time I open Facebook, I see people who pass away from COVID who I know RIP to this one, RIP to that one. As our old stalwart in St. James, Mr. Kenny, he passed away. Condolences to Dennis and Nikki and Ronald and their family too. And when you see things like that, and you know that the thing that kills these people and kills so much people is inside of you now and your body battling that is not a nice thing. So I don't think I could have been in a better situation than with my wife here taking care of me fully.
Hey, Sean, hey, your mind. Are they danger? But I want to leave it open.
Me tell you about she.
I is the boss, she's the boss.
Yes.
I is the sing, she's the force.
Yes.
The cupboard and closet.
Oh gosh.
Everything match. I is the drunk, she's the sailor. I is the pain, she's the healer.
Yes.
I is the pain, she's the sealer.
Everything match.
I is the frank, she's the franker. I is the swank, she's the swanker. I is the war, she's the tanker. Everything match. I is the jab, she's the corner. I is the heat, she's the lava. I is the hate, she's the karma. Everything match. Everything match.
Everything match.
Everything. From scratch. Everything match. Everything match. Everything. From scratch. I is the cool, she's the feeling. I is the ground, she's the ceiling. I is the truth, she revealing. Everything match. I is the rough, she's the smoother. I is the trap, she's the shoulder. I is the crane, she's the boulder. Everything match. Everything match. Everything match. Everything from scratch. Everything match. Everything match.
Everything match. All right, so that's enough for COVID, right? We're getting over this. We're getting over these things together. You know what I mean? COVID Chronicles are over. By next week, I'm supposed to be talking to you mask-free. Like, you know what I mean? Make sure that you're good, but... All right, so enough about COVID. By next week, I should be over this. I'll be talking to all you mask-free. You could listen without having to sanitize and so on. And everybody will be good. In the meantime, take care of yourself, right? If you could avoid getting this thing, avoid it. The proof is there that your chances are much better if you're vaccinated. So I'd encourage everybody to get vaccinated. Go and get a booster. I was supposed to get my booster last week. And this coming up. So I had to find out when the booster thing going on. What else happened in news this week?
Might be. The truth is the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we
Right.
have to be careful we don't create a deeper crisis
Right.
than the one we are already having. And I will do what is responsible for the people of Tobago.
Right.
I will not just run with something just because the Prime Minister says it, or because Alwari comes and speaks in his best convent voice, talking up in his nose hole, and somehow that makes it law. That's not how we operate in Tobago.
No, you see the issue I have with politicians. I don't want to get myself worked up and out of breath. You know, I don't think it's easy on this podcast. But this is the issue I be having with politicians. It's like, dude, when are they getting power? I mean, possibly I didn't hear enough from Farley to know this is exactly how he is and how he's talk all the time. But you're now reaching power here. You come as a king of Tobago. You and Mia Motley's clean sweeps. Well, you do a halfway clean sweep. You forget one corner, but Mia Motley take a clean sweep of the place. It's clear that you have the mandate. You as the man in charge. You are the one the people want. You know what I mean? You're the preference. Vox Populi, Vox Dei, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And within weeks of you coming in power, this is the rhetoric that you have for the Attorney General of the country, who we would hope that will find a way to work together and, you know what I mean? Work for the betterment of the country. But boy, politicians is some of the most self-serving people they have. And this is one of the issues I always talk about with politicians, right? Because you know, you're so high and mighty as Farley, as the head of the THA, that you could publicly in a news interview talk about how the Attorney General talking in his nose hole, and why is that to talk like this? We don't have no respect or no kind of decorum, not even for the person but for the office. We can't come out of the gutter politics. We win and we still campaign. You know what I mean? We in a constant state of campaigning. So this is what and my UNC and PNM problem for a long time has always been. They don't ever stop talking to their base. It seems as though regardless of how clear the mandate is that you are the people who we want, they don't ever switch that off to say, okay, but now I'm governing for not just the majority, but also the minority. I know there are people who vote for the PNM, but I am THA leader for everybody. We say that the election night, but then we go very quickly back into campaign mode. Because it's such a disrespectful statement. And just not just disrespectful, unnecessary, like, for what? And the for what, in my mind, is that they want to say, they like saying these things so that they could rile up the base. So everybody say, you see, you jam the Attorney General and stuff. Not realizing that you have people who you govern now, who you're responsible for, who have to come to you for issues, who are in support of that same Attorney General that you're talking about. And it sounds as if you're not just dismissing and disrespectful to the Attorney General, but you're dismissive and disrespectful to everybody who might be supporters of the Attorney General or the PNM or however you want to put it. So maybe it's not a PNM or UNC problem, because just the other day I was saying, fresh blood, young people like Farley, that is what we need anything. But yeah, in the end of Django, Django is one of my favorite movies. He say, Leonardo DiCaprio tell Schultz, he say, oh, he's a sore loser. And Schultz say, and you, sir, are an abysmal winner. I just want to leave that out there in the ethos for whoever it may concern. Guy Griffith criticizes use of tear gas against protesters. I feel like if I tear gas now with this mask, I gotta get out here. I can't do this too long with this mask. Guy Griffith, so last week we saw McDonald Jacob and them use some tear gas on Abdullah and the squad who went out and protest, right? And I mean, even between then and now, we had an approved and peaceful version of the same protest. I think that would have happened Sunday. It was part of a global movement against the power that is being held by governments, I think is what they were saying overall. Like, the government has too much power over what we do and our movements and restrictions and so on. And I think it's a global call to remove the restrictions or to remove the power of governments. I do feel like that's an important protest, right? Bear with me a little bit. We have a tendency to not relinquish the control that we get. I'm talking about as governments, right? I want you to use 9/11 as an example. I'm not saying that what happens in the airports is unnecessary. I'm just saying that before 9/11, travel was a different thing than post 9/11. 9/11 come and happen, and they had to put a lot of restrictions in place in terms of what could go on a plane, how long people have to be there before, a lot of different changes. You all know the changes already, right? That slow down the process or make the traveling process a little more unpleasant than it was before. Now, what tends to happen is that regardless of if there's a threat, red level, yellow level, whatever level threat it is, we tend not to go back to the freedoms that we enjoyed before. In the case of 9/11, let's assume that protects us from any future terrorist activity or anything like that. But it could also be a dangerous thing in the wrong hands. Let me put it like that, right? And governments tend to do it. So you find that the governments collectively in the world now realize that restricting the movement of people, closing public spaces, all those things are possible, deciding which industry could operate and which industry can operate. Those are things that you would only find in normal circumstances. You would only find those in a communist type country where the government has all the say about what goes on. So what we're going through here now, you could have go through that in Russia or China based on the feeling of the person in charge or based on what they anticipate coming, whether they think that coming is true or not. They could lock down parts of the sector, parts of the country, and so on. In a typical capitalist democracy, you would have never see something like this, ever. It is the main criticism that democratic countries have against the socialist countries, that the government have too much control. But the kinds of control you see the government taking in these times, I just want you to think of it in terms of not the party in power or who you like, or if you're a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter or Rowley or Kamala. Don't think about it in those terms. Think about the terms where you don't trust the person who is in charge. And they might have win the election for the majority of people might have voted them in, but you don't trust them. You see them as corrupt, you see them as having ill will and so on. And these people have all these freedoms to control which sectors operate, if schools are in person or not, if beaches or rivers could be open. Or, we could open the beach, but only till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the day. We could not open the rivers at all. And the purpose of the beach is for therapeutic purposes, you know what I mean? So I don't know what they define in that as. Or sports could play, but only certain sports could play. It could be a dangerous thing. So I was glad to see that they have people who are, I don't think a protest is the best way to do it. Let me not say a protest, but a gathering. But they get a permission and they do it, and it was peaceful, and you almost didn't hear about it at all because nothing like that happened. But just 1 week ago, this same group of people led by Abdullah was tear gassed, right? And Gary Griffith had something to say about it. Of course he did, right? Former Commissioner of Police, coming from the Newsday, this is Sean Douglas, right? 17th of January. Former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith lamented the use of tear gas by the police on peaceful protesters at the Queen's Park Savannah, Port of Spain on Sunday. He was speaking to the television host JW on the Morning Brew. After marchers ignored orders to disperse, the police arrested several people, including activist Umar Abdullah, and then deployed tear gas canisters. Let me get to what Gary was saying, right? He said, I am not here to cast aspersions, whether pro-vaccination or not. As Commissioner of Police in my 3 years, I fully understood the rights of persons to protest. That is your right. What I said is for you to do that, you need to apply to the COP. I will ensure that you can protest. Even if they did not get that request, the police that is, it means obviously there was a breakdown in communication, but even having done that, we need to be very careful. One of the policies that I put in place is that at any time we have to use that kind of force on citizens, it must come from the police. It must come from the office of the Commissioner of Police, and there's a reason for that. Suppose the head of the Guard and Emergency branch decides, okay, it is time to tear gas. Okay, that is his judgment call. But suppose you go to Abu Bakr's funeral where there was 2 times the amount of persons than permitted under the COVID regulations at that funeral, and the head of the entire agency task force was there, and he said, I don't think we should tear gas. That's where you'll get persons stating there's not a level playing field. How is it we could do this, but at Abu Bakr funeral, where there are 2 times more persons, I made a judgment call and we decided not to tear gas. So you see, Gary Griffith have a point here, and there's something that I think McDonald Jacob, and it might be the edge that Gary, we will get to Gary issues in a minute, right? But it's one of the areas that he will always have an edge on anybody else who take up that position after him. The visual part of it. Because one of the things he went on to say is that in a protest like that, where it getting out of hand and stuff, he would have had boots on the ground. That is true. I don't think anybody could criticize Gary Griffith on not being present. What he do with his presence is a different story. Yeah? But I will say that if I had a preference, I prefer a commissioner of police who is more present. I mean, this is a small country. Every little issue here has become a big issue because it's a small country. You know what I mean? Some protesters think that's a big is like we are a little bit of a small city in the States, a small town. So any little issue, the whole countries know about it. And you know what I mean? That's one of the benefits of being small. I think one of the things we had to take advantage of the fact that it's small is like to be present as the heads of the country, as the leaders. I know that is not Gary Griffith's job to go and arrest people on the ground and stuff, but there's a different level of importance that is given to situations when he is there personally. Now, I remember him being on the ground at the Beatum at a point in time. I don't know if people remember this, but there was a time, and I want to say this was during COVID, was it? I can't remember if this was before COVID or not, and it might have been just before COVID, where Beatum residents were spilling out onto the highway over, I can't remember if they were protesting something or what the issue was, but it had started getting rowdy, let me put it like that, right? I don't even know to say violent. And they had shot up in the air and they had used tear gas. And if I remember right, a woman got shot. I might have talked about this on this podcast in some very early episode. Well, if I talk about this on the podcast, then it's definitely during COVID. But I think a woman had gotten shot or something like that. I can't remember. But Gary Griffith was there and he was, so I would think that at that point in time, he had given the order to use tear gas. If he said at any time tear gas is being used, the commissioner to control that, then he would have done that at that point in time. So his point was that if you have to make decisions like those as the commissioner of police, you can't do it from on a perch, you can't do it from on your tower looking down. You have to be on the ground. And I do find that McDonald Jacob have a better presence thus far than Stephen Williams. Williams was a man was completely strategic in his approach. You know what I mean? He wasn't somebody you was seeing around and hearing a whole lot from McDonald Jacob. As at least more present here on the radio stations talking and that kind of thing. But when they have major issues in the country, you could expect to see Gary there. Sometimes to the annoyance of everybody else. Remember at a point in time, Gary was in a short pants and a jacket directing traffic on Diego Martin Main Road when Rowley and them was campaigning. I think Rowley was coming one way and UNC was coming the next way. And we might have called it at the time. I myself might have said, there's looking for FaceTime. He was on stage with Buju Banton. There sometimes where he's overdo it, but if I was in that position, I would probably err on the side of being seen too much rather than being seen too little. So, he in the news again today because a report came out about Gary Griffith and the issuing of FULs. Remember they were saying that this was under investigation and they had hired a former justice to look at this firearm user license situation. Well, from the reports that we got from Denise Wren in the Express on Sunday, it's pretty clear that there's some questionable practices, you know what I mean? And if those practices happen under Gary Griffith, then questions need to be asked in terms of administrative people having access to pull files and carry home files for different applicants. But I don't know who never hear this. If you're on the ground and thing, you would have heard before. If you had the figure I heard initially was 10,000 and then I hear 15,000. Apparently it reached 30 now. Where you could go to certain dealers of firearms, and if you leave at 10,000 with them with the application, you fill out the application by them, and they fast tracking it for you so that in 6 months, you're putting back in hand rather than waiting for a whole year to get the application and so on. There's a lot left. A lot is left to be desired. I could put it like that. And the report pretty thoroughly went through all that. And of course, Gary going to respond. I think Gary would have his response ready long time because one thing about Trinidad, right, is when you're reading something in the papers, understand that been circulating in the halls or the corridors of the media for some time before the story come out. And the people who involved will have copies of this and things. So when I hear Gary Griffith come out today and say he wants to know how a document like this leak, boy, listen, the Lord himself got to tell me Gary Griffith didn't see this document already himself. This is just how Trinidad is. We are the last people to find out, layman, So reading from The Guardian, this on 20th of January, I know who read this. Former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith is questioning how the media got hold of a confidential report into an alleged firearm user license racket taking place within the police service. Details of the report compiled by retired Justice Stanley John, at the behest of the former Police Service Commission, was published on Sunday, and Gary Griffith said it was the latest installment of the Get Gary campaign. Griffith said the leaked report also directly casts another net of confusion, bacchanal, and scandal upon the newly minted Police Service Commission. He also questioned whether it was a government official behind the leak. These clear, cheap, politically planned objectives not only blatantly demonstrates a political agenda with no purpose to solve the problem, but also impugns the character of those hired to have submitted these baseless reports, and affects proper investigation by the legitimate law enforcement authority, that being the TTPS, to target perpetrators and allows them to escape via this obviously political motive, as it keeps giving criminal elements the information that has been acquired to bring them to justice. Griffith said that whoever leaked the report has now breached the Proceeds of Crime Act and has now tipped off criminal elements of what, and when you talk about criminal elements, you're talking about within the police service, because if he's saying people breach the law in terms of the things that the report is purporting, then he's talking about the people in the police force, the police themselves and administrators within the police force. He said the granting of FULs is a rigorous process with many layers. Each requires a special undertaking. After the completion of all these undertakings by various units, the complete file is then submitted to the Commissioner of Police for signature. I openly stated that there was a matter of concern of corruption on the firearm issue. The best way to start solving a problem is to admit there was a problem. It was made easier for law-abiding citizens to acquire firearms, hence affecting the blackmail and bribery being conducted by the few rogue elements in the TTPS using the process of difficulty in acquiring such license. Now, using or abusing? Yeah, using. Now, that difficulty in acquiring the license, I think, is part of the corruption itself, right? One of the ways to keep things corrupt is to make it as complicated as possible. Because when it's complicated and it takes long to get, we are a society that enjoys the benefits of corruption. We like loopholes, we like shortcuts, we like who you know. We don't like to go and line up. We like to call somebody who we know and get it sorted out and so on. So once you're in a situation where there is a complicated process that take long, just look for corruption in that process. And I think part of what he said in the article too, and he writes about it, is that when you start hearing, I'm going to ask people this, right? Forget all the reports, forget the investigation and things. Tell me when you start hearing about corruption in the acquisition of firearm user licenses. Is it in 2018-19 when Gary Noak up? I talking about decades. You're hearing that corruption. You had to grease hand for the form to move. The form had to move from one place to the next and say, at that point in time, the only place you could go is in the police headquarters building. When you go there, you have to answer some question before they give you a form. It's like, dude, just give me a form as a citizen. If there's a procedure by which you have to be able to get a form, make that very clear. All these little obscurities, ways that you could corrupt a system. So when people talk about licensing office reform and going cashless in licensing office and stuff, understand that there's people and their family losing out money directly because it had a little thing going on between the driving schools and who organized with which license officer to make sure you get your license, and you had to pay. I heard talk about Shoguna's license offices before, where it's impossible to pass a test. You have to pay your money. I know somebody who tell me personally, she's like, boy, it's so hard. I just pay the money and my son get his license. You see me and them thing, I pray them thing. In the corporations, they get a completion certificate when you're building a building. There's a whole thing between the contractors, it seems, and the building inspector and the engineer, and all of them dancing and playing new games. I think I tell stories about that in terms of me getting my own completion certificate for my house. So Trinidad is a place like this. So not saying that I can't say anything that would help absolve Gary Griffith. He don't need my help to say anything on his behalf either. But I'm just saying that these systems, the individuals, if we continue to try to tear down the individuals, the system will remain intact, and every individual who go in there will be suspect or be underperforming, because the next extreme of Gary Griffith, who seem to be pushing through applications. I mean, he issued plenty more licenses than were issued before, right? That was covered many, many times. But when you think of Stephen Williams, who didn't want to issue no license at all, they had to go back now and say, well, right, this man must he had a reason, because if people carrying home file and doing this and that, he might have been looking at the whole situation and saying, here, what's going on? You see this thing, one of the ways to pass stop to the corruption is don't sign none. That way, when a man pay 20,000 or whatever and he ain't getting the result, you let the whole system implode on itself. I remember the CEO of the corporation, I think his name was Mohammed. He do that, boy. I mean, it really affect me badly because now he decide he ain't signing off nobody completion certificate because building inspector and them running racket. And I had to go there and see a whole... When I go in there, is the mayor, building inspector, engineer, this, that, and the other. A whole room. It's one of the most intimidating things I ever do. And I sit down with my contractor now, who finished my place. He say he wants to come with me, which now that I look back at it, I'm not sure if the contractors... No, it seems as though the contractors were involved in something with the corporation. So when he had to go, he said, I will come with you. But me I need no support, and I need no help, because when I go in them kind of thing, I talk in my mind. So because I want to see now all these people who I was seeing individually to try to get my completion certificate. Me do nothing wrong. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I do something wrong. When you're building, you're supposed to have an inspector come to start. See, the building inspector is supposed to come before you start. And then he's supposed to come at different phases. I think when your foundation pouring, you're supposed to set up an appointment with him, your ring beam. I did not know you were supposed to do this. The original contractor I had didn't tell me this. I didn't know you were supposed to do this. I had a little certificate saying commencement. And I thought you just had you commence. But apparently you're supposed to stick up that somewhere that's visible. So when they come in to inspect the site, they could tick off and sign off on it. I just was lacking knowledge and I taken wrong for that. But apparently there's some process. I can't remember the process now they're supposed to do in the end, but I can't get the process done either, because I going by building inspector, he telling me check the engineer. Going by engineer, he telling me check the CEO. When I go by the CEO, I had to talk to the mayor. I just to get a little 3-bedroom house. I had to talk to mayor and all kinds of things in Chaguanas here to be able to get that done. So I'm so glad that I end up in a room with these men. I remember all of them by name in the sleep. Budan was the mayor, Mohammed was the CEO. The building inspector was Barrow, and the engineer was a fellow named Boniface Ogama from a Nigerian fellow. When I reach in that room with these men and I watching all these men asking me questions about things, I said, but I came to you and you told me X, Y, Z, and you tell me I had to go to Ogama. He's like, I couldn't tell you that. I said, no. That is what you tell me. I went to see the building inspector. I said, you told me you came by my house, and my house, as far as I'm concerned, based on what the corporation require, everything here complete for me. I say, you tell me I cannot get a completion certificate till I paint my house. I say, oh God, boy, I can't prime, because at this point I don't have the money. He said, not prime, paint. I say, well, what the hell is this? No, I agree that it will be better if we can't get a completion certificate before you paint it. But when you watch how much a house in Chaguanas and thing in paint, and it's only block, and you can see through the block on them on commercial buildings in Chaguanas, but you're telling me I had to paint. I say, all right, brother. If the law is the law, only to find out in that meeting with everybody that is not a requirement at all. I said, but you told me paint. He said, Shepherd, I tell you paint. I said, boy, you're like, good. I said, you tell me. I said, I ask you prime. You say paint. I said, all right. But anyway, I don't know how I reached quite in. I blame it on COVID. Anything I stray too far and think my mind ain't working too right. But it's just the corruptible nature of our systems in this country. I think that is the issue that we had to get behind. So when you see Stephen Williams sit down on all the thing like what Ashmead Mohammed do, and he ain't sign nobody on, he caused the system to implode. But then Peter go pay for Paul, because somebody who needs to get a license. And I hear McDonald Jacob on the radio this morning, Blaze and JW, that's Monday morning, Blaze and Miles. And he was saying, Blaze asked him a good question, which everybody obscure about. It's like, okay, so should people not apply? Because if you need to apply now, if it's under investigation and is this and that, is it that all you're not issuing licenses? And he said today, no, it's better people don't apply. This is the first time I hear this. Right? Well, you tell me if I missed this somewhere. He said it's better people don't apply because right now we're going through our audit and the section lockdown and all this kind of thing. And he said, but if you have an emergency situation, then you could get in contact with the commissioner of police. It's like, what? What are you talking about? what is the emergency situation, and why is there leeway for emergency situation if the whole thing locked down and it's in audit mode? And then he say, well, what we're doing is focusing on the backdated applications, or the applications are already there, and the provisional licenses it's like, come on, is there effort to address the system, or is it that we're trying to vilify each individual who passed through by saying this one is license, playing the fool, this one getting everybody, so he obviously corrupt and they're making money and taking money. I think at some point we had to get past this, and this is not a FUL problem. This is a TNT problem. I'm talking about the corruptible nature of Trinidadians' carnival activities for 2022. Apparently, Randall Mitchell, who was also on the morning show at Blaze and JW. Salute to Blaze and, oh God, you know who I mean, right? Blaze and Miles. I'm not a young man. Reading from Loop TT here, carnival activities for 2022 will be held at safe zone venues for vaccinated persons only. Earlier, Sir Randall Mitchell, Minister of Tourism, Culture and Arts, said these types of safe zone events will be limited to 50% capacity with controlled entry and exit points and sanitization upon entry in accordance with public health regulations. Concert type shows such as soca and calypso concerts, calypso tents, soca, calypso extempo and chutney competitions, steel band concerts, carnival king and queen shows, and carnival theatre will be allowed. The minister said following public health guidelines and regulations, fetes, parties, and similar types events by any other name will not be allowed on account of the nature of those activities and the risk they pose to increased spread of COVID-19 virus. So, we have a carnival, but the Promoters Association say we don't have a carnival. The Promoters Association is upset. Now, you had a feel for the Promoters Association, right? Because when you listen to them, a part of the issue is that they have not been able to work or to earn, if you want to put it that way, in many years. Because when Carnival and many other events are locked down, quote unquote, they're lacking an opportunity to make money. Even if it's not from their own events, it's from managing other people's events and that type of thing, right? So I saw, for instance, Boris Johnson basically come on the TV and say, everybody free, do what you want, no mask necessary. And thing. Well, Boris Johnson basically come on the TV and say, all you go ahead and do what I was doing for the whole time. Because he under severe pressure to resign now because, hey, you know what's sad? And these politicians is something else. What, you remember the picture of the Queen sitting down at, what's after the name again? Prince Philip funeral? By herself because of COVID, and she couldn't. That was a sad thing to see. I mean, I like to make joke of these people and them kind of thing, but I don't wish that on nobody. Them COVID funerals was so damn sad. But she had to just sit and watch him there by solo me, or nobody to comfort you, nobody to tell you something, or no many faces the next day to make a joke or nothing. And they say that the night before that funeral, the Prime Minister had a party. And boy, listen, when you hear English people in Parliament is the greatest thing, yes, because they start to say, booze laden party. And he just, boy, listen, these people are belly. You don't care. They send a little shop boy or somebody working in the office, a tea lady. They send her in the shop to buy up some vodka and thing for the party. Yes? So you have people under restriction and lockdown, which is not just curbing the freedoms we talked about before, but affecting people's ability to make their little money, see about their family, and in the midst or to see off a loved one in a dignifying way, and you drinking and partying and having a time. So on the heels of that, he come out and say, all right, no more restrictions, everybody free, just do what I was doing and party and enjoy yourself. And now you could get alcohol through your regular channels. You don't have to send a little tea lady to get no liquor for you. You know what I mean? Salute to Boris Johnson. This man, he has politics figured out clearly. But when you hear the Promoters Association making a fuss about it, is because a lot of the people who are a part of the Promoters Association, let me use Hoppy as an example, right? Who was on JW show on TNC3, talking about how it really makes sense, but he have a plan. I feel, honestly, his plan is to go and do the whole carnival somewhere else. This is dangerous territory we get into now, because, as I say, we own this little space in February as the carnival to go to. The stakeholders, whether you like it or not, you see the tribe, whoever's the people behind private, I'm just talking about the biggest events, right? And I'm talking outside of the government-run should I call it government run, boy? Because I mean, Panther and Bago is government run. They have big events, but people like Soca Monarch and things is not government run, but government assisted. So I take any government run and government assisted things out of it. So just talk about private people who have in their business. They are a critical part of Carnival. You mightn't like the promoters and the way they behave, and if they're watching Gollywog night versus whatever kind of other night it used to have back in the day, or having exclusive events where people, some of these bands, you had to send a picture yourself. I had to tuck in my belly to make sure I could play in certain mass bands in this country. You know what I mean? When they say send a picture yourself. And getting fed tickets, you have to send a picture and thing. Now, these things could be for your own safety, because apartheid, I remember saying, like, who had Rachel Sukdeo picture and decided that she should get a ticket, so I had to bounce up Rachel Sukdeo in one of the last fete I ever went. But it could also be seen as like efforts to discriminate. But anyway, whether they like their practices or not, or the way they operate or not, they are critical to the carnival industry. Well, we have to remember that what we want to build is industries. Private sector industries is what we want to build. I never like this notion where we just look at business people like all these business people, all they have money, all they making all the money in the world, all they do nothing for nobody, and all they complaining the most. That is not, I don't think that's the best attitude to get us the kind of development we want. The government will never get us there. Panther and Bago will never get us there. It left up to me, Panther and Bago will not be able to govern what happens. I shouldn't say govern, but they can operationalize PAN. You need a private sector company to run PAN competitions, and the development of PAN, that should be handed over to the people who run in Despas and Renegades and people who know about PAN. You need them in charge as a private entity, money making. And if somebody figure out how to make more money than you should move on to. Rather than the government trying to own it and control it. I always say, like, look at the NFL as an example. Salute to Tom Brady for losing last night, by the way. But if you look at the NFL as an example, right? The NFL is a privately run organization. It's a cartel like hell, right? But they have 32 teams. Yeah, 32 teams. They have a National Football Conference and American Football Conference. So they make their separation in terms of how the leagues join, and they all come together. And each one have one out of 32 votes, and they govern their league themselves. Now, they need a heavy government involvement because the building of the stadium with city, the teams playing and so on, it starts to get down to the state governance to get involved in making sure. And there's benefit for the state for retaining and maintaining a team and all that, right? In terms of the commerce of the state, the jobs created and the opportunities and all that, right? It's a model that I see as viable for Panther and Bago, because the owners is the same set of PAN sides coming back into PAN every year. So let's assume they have 32 PAN sides. You have some large, you have some medium, you have some small, so call that NFC, AFC, whatever version of that is. If you create a corporation where each one of the owners of these PAN sides is a franchise, and Panther and Bago is a competition every year. So the PAN calendar looks a certain way. You have a competition every year during Carnival. You have a touring season. You have PAN in the 21st century where we play non-traditional or non-calypso music. We play music of other genres, whatever it might be. We have bookings, we have this, we have that. But we all come together. It will be a cartel like hell I'm talking about. But we all come together, and from a private standpoint, we make decisions about what is best for the PAN League, right? The first thing we had to address in the PAN League is to standardize the creation of PAN, standardize how PAN's laid out and how they played, what constitutes a PAN side, what is allowed, how much you could do these things as a private entity. That way, the private entity has the responsibility. The onus is on you for how do you make this profitable. Will the government still be involved? I'll say yes, but the government had to be involved just like how the state involved in the NFL. You can't make decisions about what's supposed to happen for PAN. You could make decisions about if you Port of Spain South. You could make decisions about, now I'm going to pretend I know about her PAN side, who in Port of Spain South. Who in Port of Spain South? Let me say invaders. I hope they in Port of Spain South. You as the person who in charge of Port of Spain South in Scotland now, sure all my information around COVID. But you could then decide, okay, for invaders to be an attraction for Port of Spain, there's a benefit to us as a city. What I want to be able to contribute is a state-of-the-art pan yard where there are facilities for everybody to come, facilities for the performers to change and so on, good proper dressing rooms, change rooms, facilities for the patrons to be able to buy food, sit down, enjoy themselves, separateness in terms of social distance if we're still going through this time, washroom facilities, proper parking and so on. So that becomes an attraction now for the team. And then we have a revenue split decision where, okay, when I have a facility like this that you use as your home, I could also rent that out for different events and so on. And we have some kind of revenue split arrangement for how I make money off the venue when you're not using it. But the venue is yours, it's named after you. The venue itself, no, I don't have to depend on government. Again, I could get sponsorship for that. So rather than this ridiculous thing where it shows the selfishness as Trinidad, where we more important as a sponsor, we put ourselves, our name as the company in front of the thing that we sponsored. So I had to say Caribbean Airlines Invaders or Whitco Desperados. So you're trying to tell me that the Whitco is the attraction of who we come to see, who it is we love, who it is we back, who we support. Could you imagine a world where somebody says the Chicago Nike Bulls or the Reebok Patriots? That will never happen. How you could sell out the product to the point where, so when you give me a little bit of money to buy some pan and maintain and thing, I'm not saying that that's not important, but it could never be more important than the product itself. It's one of the biggest problems I have with pan. And this is why I need to leave things in the hand of private enterprises, because a private man who running his business will never put a sponsor name in front of the name of his business or his team or his pan side. It will never happen. But once you leave it in the hand of public sector, the government, that's a very government thing to do. Whitco Desperados. So when Whitco decide to stop sponsoring me, the title of the way people know me changes. So it's no more Whitco sponsoring again. Now is Solo. Now I Solo Desperados. What the hell is going on? This is crazy. Where you find that the NFL and the NBA teams and them do, they leave it with the state. The state could go and call the arena. You could go and say the Alliance Arena or the Bitcoin Center or what's the one in Miami name again? American Airlines Stadium or Field or whatever. So the sponsors could get some title because sponsors important and they want their pound of flesh. They want their own visibility for the thing. But the visibility can't be the American Airlines Miami Heat. It will never happen. And we have thing of Whitco Desperados. It's so annoying. BP Renegades. And then when BP or Moko Renegades and then Moko leave the country, I had to name myself BP Renegades. Now it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But again, I don't know how I get into this. Anytime I'm going on too long is it COVID, But you understand where I'm coming from. I just feel like if we have an opportunity to adjust these things and we cannot continue to treat business people because they have a private interest and profitability is their motive as if they are the enemy. We want more people to come out seeking after profitability and private sector is what will drive and change the country. I think one of the issues we have locally here is because the people who have achieved the highest level of profitability in the private sector tend to look a certain way. And because they don't look like me and you, we might tell ourselves that we cannot access that, we cannot achieve that, we can't accomplish that. And I just feel like there's a part of our mentality that we need to change. Because some of the biggest promoters in the carnival industry look like me and you. You know what I mean? So what's stopping us from becoming those people? The private sector is where the action is. The government running businesses is bad business. It's inefficient. It usually leads to more situations like the FUL thing where it corrupt and corruptible and so on. I don't think it's a good idea at all. So I would think that I agree with the Promoters Association in that, number one, that is not a carnival. And I don't think it's so much that it's not a carnival. I always go back to my guy Omari Ashby and what he says. He say, Captain Baker ain't riot for nobody to tell me when to have a carnival. And every year so far, he has gone and do his Juve solo meal. You see him covered in mud. The first time I see him do it, I tell myself, Omari, like he trying a throwback Thursday. But I know he went and pour libation and go in the savannah and doing mud and Carnival time is a tribute to his ancestors. And Carnival might mean very different things to all of us. But I will say that for the promoters who doing this as a business, and the purpose of that business is to make money. Nothing wrong with that. And one of the things that I find we need to address, and this is what I want to hear Randall Mitchell say, like the government, how are you going to facilitate? That should be your role. Okay, people need to make money from this. This is an important industry to us. What can I do to facilitate people making their money off the events? Because the more money people make in this country is the better off the country going. Well, you want econ lesson, are they? Should I go through an econ lesson just to show why the idea of the 1% is a great thing, and what we need to do is boost the 1% so that it either starts to become 2 and 3 and 4%, or the wealth of the 1% increase enormously over time, and how all of us will benefit from it and do better? Should I also do a lesson here in that the 1%, it just means the top 1% of earners of the country, and that could be me or that could be you? And also that if your business that you investing in, forget Carnival for a while, whatever business idea you have or whatever you do, when your venture or your entity blow up, as it will, speaking life into your entity, right? When your thing blow up and it gets to be the biggest version of whatever you do in the country, do you appreciate that you will be hated by the masses who going to say that you're thief and you're corrupt and you should nothing and all you do is take and you don't give back nothing and stuff? I'm putting it to you that you would be surprised at how much philanthropic and corporate social responsibility work the biggest companies in this country do all the time. They don't make a whole big fuss about it and thing, but they do a lot of work. And they're not incentivized in the same way companies in the States are, but they continue to do the work. So salute to them. So I'm eager to hear over the next week or so what is going to be done, or what measures are there for the government to facilitate more of the feedback from the private sector. Because remember, when Hoppy say he have a plan, if that plan is to join up with Jules, Dean Akin, let's say I'm trying to remember the list of the biggest people with the biggest events in the country who not government funded or run by the government. If they take up all that and say, all right, you see Carnival Monday and Tuesday, we're going to do it in Miami. We write into the state and we get permission and we're doing a full street parade and a full this Cambule riots. We go and recreate everything and they go and make money off it. You can't get them wrong. That's what the private sector does. You have to innovate and figure out ways to make money in the hardest of circumstances. When you see a business around for 50 years, a business adjusts plenty to be around for 50 years, just like your business. We cannot afford to do that from a cultural standpoint, because I hear Randall Mitchell comfortably say, well, this carnival, not everybody could come. Traveling is expensive. Hotel rooms are expensive. We only have 4,000 rooms. Check and see how much rooms Miami have. And check how much rooms Jamaica have. And check and see how them countries done design for large amounts of tourism. And they deal with what we call peak sector, them dealing with right through. If they take the same version of Trinidad Carnival, you might find yourself having to jump on a plane to go and experience Trinidad Carnival on a Carnival Monday and Tuesday and coming back here Ash Wednesday for vacation. Dangerous territory, right? All right, another place where we're seeing some open up. This is Shamfa Kujo. Coming from the Guardian is Walter Allaby. Walter Allaby's the man who used to throw all them goals back in. Kudra gives sports green light to resume in safe zone. All right, we'll laugh. Competitive sports will finally return to TNT after competitive alone. So you guess what? Competitive sports will finally return to TNT after almost 2 years. Minister of Sports and Community Development Shamfa Kujo confirmed this via a release yesterday, which comes almost a month after she delivered a proposal to Health Minister Terence Dialsing outlining the guidelines they intended to use for a return to play plan for all sports in safe zones. So, all right, we have some sports back. So everybody who was obeying the law and wasn't playing football. Wait, this is just professional sports, competitive sports. I think. Well, I hear how on Dale and Tony on Monday morning, and Tony tried to ask in many different ways if this includes people like FetMatch and so on. The minister's response was that it's a registered organization. So if your league or your team registered with the ministry, you could go ahead based on your guidelines. You had to submit a proposal for how you intend to run this competition and what is your protocols for checking vaccination card and so on. and then you could go ahead and do your thing. I was glad that Tony and Dale, as real as both of them are, Tony say, every day I pass in King George and seeing people playing football. And as he rightly say, glad to see them playing, you know. A part of me is, and this I guess was one of a lot of the complaints about the people early in COVID. And I used to be thinking like these people going off, like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan used to be saying, why they're not pushing health and fitness and thing. And what my first thing was that if I ain't healthy, me ain't gonna get healthy in a month. So apart of it is like why wouldn't they push other things in terms of mask and sanitizing and you know what I mean? But there was never this big push for like health, get more healthy, handle your immune system, exercise more. And when you look at it, we're 2 years into the pandemic and I just as unhealthy as I was in the beginning. I shouldn't say that. I really a lot healthier. I tried. But yeah, so we have competitive sports back. Trinidad went and play well, they mightn't qualify. The Soca Warriors mightn't be because they was not competitive against Bolivia. Yeah, a quick 5. But I guess the national teams could train here again. I don't know if they was training all the time. And they could play more games down here. I think they have an under-19 cricket World Cup that's supposed to start here as well, as if anybody not interested in that. The West Indies, they competitive. I ain't sure the Patriots not competitive. And Chelsea not competitive. But I ain't sure who competitive. But I'm glad to see that people going out. What stood out to me the most here, and what I wanted to know more than anything else is, will this affect school sports? Does this mean that school league, like under 14 league and under 16 and so on, will they be able to continue and go back out playing the sports? Because one of the things I always remember is when I passed for Fatima and that vacation between when you do your common entrance and you're starting in September. Salute to my guy Barney. I remember Barney carrying me to football and cricket practice and thing down on Fatima grounds. This is before school open and you ever get to see the school. And playing sports for school was such an important part of my school life. I played cricket up to under 16 level, football up to under 16. I played basketball for first team. By the time I reached Tranquil, I used to play basketball for the school. And you know what I mean? It's like we underestimate sometimes how important that is. And with these children home for so long, it's part of the thing that's bothering me all the time. We're gonna miss, because this is 2 years now and going forward with not just schools being closed, but school sports being off completely. So think of how much a Jean Pierre, maybe I shouldn't start with Jean Pierre. I think maybe I just go back too far in time, you know what I mean? How much a Jean Pierre and thing we're gonna miss out on, or Latter P. Who I could call from nowadays? DJ Bravo. How much are sports people, right? I don't know no new ones, right? How much are sports people we miss out on? Who would have missed 2 or 3 years or the most important parts of your school or your sporting development? I mean, when I started playing cricket and football for school, I would have been 7 years and 8 years old. I was in standard 1 when I first started to play sports for school. So think about that, from 7 all the way up to 15, playing school sports. It sets you up in a different ways, a different set of relationships you have from the men we used to play sports with. My guy Jerome Daniels always bring out a picture from Newtown boys winning football side. When you look back at that side, it's men like, well, myself, of course. But them days I wasn't blossoming in the way I am now in football as a big striker. I used to play left back, meaning not on the field at all, right? But on that team, I had my Nigel player, Javette Seeley, Alirio Howard, Jonathan and Jerome Daniel. Players, you know, are missing out some people. Leslie Tiger Stewart. No, Leslie Tiger Stewart was the boxer. Leslie Fitzpatrick, Tiger. You know what I mean? We had big players on the team. And, you know, the salute to my guy, Mr. Ding Chong. But that school sport is such a missing element, and I find like it's one of the things that nobody talks much about. So my son now is 10. He going on to, he is 9 or 10. He around that age. And he never play a school sport. He never play an organized school activity, like no football, nothing. He used to play volleyball in school at a point in time, but it's make you wonder, like what will happen if he pass for common entrance or SEA and going into secondary school? Will he be able to play competitive sports? It's such an important part of your overall development. And I always feel that, you see, sports and music, I always talk about learning music, and I have him in a music class because it's an important part of your development. I feel music is honest. you could only play as well as you put in with your instrument. You see that whole idea that people gifted and all that? I believe in that to a real small extent. Maybe you're predisposed, like my father played guitar, so maybe you're predisposed to be able to play guitar. But let me tell you something, an instrument is a true thing. What you put in is what you're going to get out. When you hear a man playing real good, like I saw a show by Vaughn at Bigfoot. Salute Vaughn at Bigfoot. I was seeing that on the socials last night. Hearing how she sing and what she does with her voice and things. Listen, she puts in her hours. That is not no guesswork. That is not no natural. That is no gift. That is part gift, maybe 20% gift, and 80% very, very hard work. Both in terms of how she sings and how she comes on a stage. And my guy Tony Woodruff is there behind her playing saxophone. Drifting in the memory. And you hear him say, ooh, it's a be over you. And he's a Tony don't miss a note. Tony is a bad sax man. But I know him playing saxophone since we start Fatima. When he came into Fatima thing, he could have played. So it means that he put in hours since then to be able to play now. Count how much years that is. Etienne Charles, who went Fatima with me as well. All the best people went Fatima now, just say. And the second best went Tranquil. But when you see how Etienne is play at this point, the men put in the time, they put in the hours. It's no way around it. Music is very, very honest. And I feel like sports is one of those things too. I feel like sports as a little child, whether we turn out to be Sunday league sweaters like myself, where you can only get a little sweat on a Sunday. The only time I get pick is when the men like me in the community and they need people to play and it have no exclusion. Everybody had to play. That's the only time I get pick. Professional sports was never going to be my destiny. But what I will say is that it teaches you something. It teaches you how to win gracefully. Farley play sports. It teaches you how to lose gracefully as well, you know what I mean? It teaches you how to communicate with people, how to get angry, how to control your temper. It's just so much that you learn in sports, the camaraderie. As a man, I don't think women ever understand how important it is for men at 40. Like, we going through a little phase here early in the year. I can tell you, I fall and dislocate my finger. I talk about that doctor who come and check my home here. I was so grateful he come and check my finger and thing. He playing the other day, he sprained the ankle. The next man playing, another doctor too, he knee gone try and see he's sweating how long. I want to tell you that nobody tackled any of the three of us. Every time you see we sweat and somebody injured, a man getting injured solo me or just running down a ball by yourself, you see a man goes so wrong. It's the Chronicles of your 40s, you know what I mean? But the reality is that the camaraderie and the brotherhood that we build with sports, you just miss it as a even in your 40s, you're past the point of having any career in sports. Half the time you finish play, you're injured and everybody limping home and all them kind of thing. But the camaraderie and the brotherhood that we build, I say it in the top of the podcast, these fellas in this football side around here, them then checking on me every day. It was like, hey, COVID, how you going there with the COVID? All the time. And the lime after, sometimes the lime after lasts so much longer than the sweat itself. And a part of all that comes from this age, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, when you start playing sports together as youths. And you had to wonder, beyond just being in school and the social issues that faced with them doing school home and not doing school in person, it starts to get a little worrying. And before I get out here, I want to read an article. You have to bear with me a little bit, right? It's an article written by Annalisa Alcazar, and it's published in today's in The Guardian, whoever day this was, I saved this. This is really from somebody who is a psychiatrist and understands the development of children. And it's a little long, but stay with me. I think it's an important point. And Annalisa Alcazar is a MA in mental health therapist and mental health therapist, a child specialist. So this is what she had to say, right? For the last 18 years, I've worked with children doing medical health therapy in Trinidad. As a clinician, I'm growing increasingly concerned. As a nation, we need to start planning beyond COVID-19 years and create a response to recover and reimagine a post-pandemic world for every child in our sweet TNT. In 2021, many of my professional colleagues noticed an over 50% increase in appointment requests for child clients. This trend speaks for itself. It's only 2 weeks into 2022 and already the calls are rolling in. Parents are concerned that their 2-year-old isn't talking yet, their 3-year-old is acting oddly, or their 4-year-old is having intense emotional meltdowns daily. Some have been referred by their physicians. The parents want to know, is my child autistic? How do I test them? The simple answer is no. Toddlers/preschoolers age 1 to 3 have only ever known the COVID-19 lockdown and its isolated world. It is increasingly concerning if this is what is to become. Children whose development is so stunted that they exhibit traits of the autism spectrum disorder because their language and communication are so underdeveloped due to isolation and lack of sensory stimulation. TNT, we need to wake up. Daycares and preschools are still closed almost 2 years later, even though many preschools usually only have 10 to 20 children in total separated by classes. Small children have not spent time with other children. Their exposure to nursery rhymes, circle time, letters, gross and fine motor play is nil. These are important for brain development. Parents who are trying to keep their job as well as homeschool their 5-year-old do not have the time or energy for singing nursery rhymes. With the recent announcement, there is hope for Forms 1 to 3 who might return to school in person on February 1st. And remember that February 1st, but if you're listening to this now, February 1st is like next week, yeah? After almost 700 days of not being in person, in-person school, that 11 to 14 age group has shown concerning signs of anxiety and depression. Parents describe that their preteen won't come out of their room, that they are having trouble keeping up with their schoolwork, or they are too anxious to participate on Zoom. They are no longer interested in anything. They are very unmotivated. Some have trouble sleeping and aren't reaching out to their friends anymore. Some don't have secondary school friends, as it's much harder to form bonds online. There's no longer a facial expression on their face. Their eyes are glazed over. Many are saying or thinking, what is the point of life? Now, in addition, their anxiety about returning to school is high, not for fear of the virus, but more so because it's been so long. They are physically uncomfortable seeing other kids. It feels awkward being with others. The longer they stay away, the harder it will be to return. Just before I continue, keep that in mind, right? Keep in mind how what social anxiety is. And the first day you form two children who now seeing each other for the first time, who would only see each other on Zoom with maybe fake backgrounds and maybe only an upper body seen on camera. When everybody comes together, think of how awkward or how mean that could be, how awkward it could be for some, and how dysfunctional it will be. I hope that whenever they reopen schools, they don't just go into the classroom and leave the teachers to figure out how to reacclimatize these children to an in-person classroom. I hope they have people like Annalisa or people who know how to do a little brain. What is called the thing again when you're going to a corporate setting? You know, when you go to these meetings with all these people from all these different countries, everybody's been nervous. It's kind of awkward. What is called them? Icebreakers. You know, they do icebreaker thing and then everybody kind of settle down. You do them before classes start. As a matter of fact, when I was doing in-class school, one of the first things I do when I come together with a group is do an icebreaker type activity so that everybody gets to introduce themselves. We think, hey, yourself talk in the classroom, so it's not nervous. That nervousness is not there. And now that I'm reading this, I realize I don't do any online icebreaker activities. I must look for online icebreakers because nobody don't answer no question anything online. When you have a Zoom class, you're talking to yourself basically. It's like another podcast you have to do in that week. Unfortunately, some will drop out. Usually it's the most vulnerable. They will stay at home and continue their side jobs of homeschooling younger siblings. After all, what's the plan? If childcare services and primary schools remain closed, I assume children in the primary classes and ECCE will be fending for themselves unattended at home. This is a real good point. So she's saying that if you have bigger brothers and sisters, the secondary school child probably very involved in the homeschooling or the maintaining the discipline of those in primary school home. But when you send them back out in Form 1 to 3 going out, who going to see about the little children home? What kind of things will you consider? She goes on to say they may be safe from COVID, but unfortunately not from fires, crime, drowning, or abuse of God. This primary school age group is also struggling. Clinically, we are seeing severe anxiety, school refusal, addiction to games, exposure to pornography, somatic complaints, and sadly also depressive features. I got to Google what is somatic, right? In 9-year-olds, sometimes depression presents more as anger and agitation and in their behavior rather than episodes of sadness. Our mental health clinics are overflowing. We can barely keep up with the demand. I am concerned about our nation. The mental health effects on this country will last the next 10 years at least. Wow. We are seeing the trends internationally already. I am concerned that we do not have the resources to service the needs of our children whose language, social, and motor skills are underdeveloped from years of isolation and social closures. Nor are we equipped to weather the storm of rising anxiety and clinical depression that is coming. And it will certainly not be enough to manage the social crisis of school dropouts, teenage pregnancies, malnutrition from no food schooling programs, and sexual abuse and violence at home. What will this COVID generation be referred to as the shortcomings of entitled millennials will certainly pale in comparison. CNN this week released some new research that showed that kids are experiencing both mental and physical health problems that are linked to school closures and social lockdowns. Please prioritize your mental and emotional health of our most vulnerable youth. TNT, become a part of the solution. Open our schools safely and urgently. This is by Annalisa Alcazar. It's a well-written article. I would probably try and get in contact with her and see if I could get a little conversation with her and talk to her about this, but it's a critical part. So when I saw the article about schools or sports starting back, my first thought after having read what Annalisa was talking about here is what's happening with sports in schools. Because with schools being closed, I'm not sure if you're paying attention to this. I certainly wasn't. But the sports are locked down. All the other extracurricular activities are locked down. So I remember being a part of photography club, debate team, it's a chess team. I wonder how much of these types of things are going on with the school, because I'm fortunate to be able to put Zachary in some extracurricular activities and make sure that he do them every day. You know, we lucky to be able to do that, but we had a spare thought for the people who not able to do that and who big brother seeing about little children, or who home alone doing homeschooling and not doing much at all. And understand that the chickens always come home to roost, you know, where you plant, you will sow, or where you sow, you will reap, or whatever you say. But this is the society that we create in future generation. And when you think about Regina King, this story we read last week, it's such a sad story where her only son committed suicide. I mean, I have somebody in our family went through that. Only boy child commit suicide. It's rough stuff. And you had to spare thought to wonder what these youths going through and where is the outreach, where are the programs. They have such little outlets, or the outlets bear no beneficial reward or no long-term reward. Is they lost in game, like the games or the pornography, or you're not building relationships with your peers and so on. It's a rough time. So we had a spare thought for these children as well to make sure that we doing the right thing. So hopefully I could get Annalisa to come on and talk to us so that we could get some solid advice from her in terms of what we should be doing with our own children. I mean, we could only fix what we could fix, right? So if you have children or nieces or nephews, and I could get her to come on, and it might give us some good little pointers in terms of what are the signals to look forward to, look out for, to prevent, to create, you know, where there's we could create some social outlets for them or some creative outlets for them so that the children not just home and frustrated, and we ourselves as parents not frustrated and on edge trying to long time beat the children into submission until they learn. I hope we're doing that at home, right? And we're creating an environment where they could prosper really and come out good, come through this thing where they're feeling good about life and feeling good about their prospects. But hey, I said this episode was up full vibes, you know, so it's no time for no down feelings, you know.
Don't have no problems, no problems. Hey. So as long as you call my name, then I will answer.
Yes.
I'm a happy camper, and love is my sponsor. Oh, and as long as I'm man of life, then I will dance up.
Hey, wait, how to say where I get credit where I get a song from? And I want to say congratulations to Ansel and Rowan. I forget, yes, it's not a young man, you know, COVID. And the first little baby boy, newborn, new life is in the building. While we talk more all this kind of the morbidity and thing, we have to celebrate new life every time. Yeah, take a horn and don't take a horn. That was a mistake. But this is where I get a song from my boy Ansel put this out there as a newborn father. I tell myself, well, boy, men going through it and men ain't sleeping at night at all. But the man said, this is what is describing him now.
Don't have no problems, no problems. Hey. So as long as you call my name, then I will answer. I'm a happy camper, and love is my sponsor. Oh, and as long as I'm man of life, then I will dance up. No time for no anger, I'm smiling with me hands up. Hey, what they calling me? Papi. Yeah, what they calling me? Mr. Happy Papi. Mr. Happy Papi. Cause I ever happy. Yeah. Stress for what? No, no, no. Vex for what? No, no, no. Depress for what? No, no, no. Nothing can get to me. Fret for what? No, no, no. Regret for what? No, no, no. Upset for what? No, no, no.
COVID can't get to me.
Problems, I don't have no problems. Any issue that I face, I let the Almighty solve them. Life too sweet, I can't complain. The only constant is the change, and we go touch the road again. So as long as you call my name, then I will answer. I'm a happy camper, and love is my sponsor. Oh, and as long as I'm man of life, then I will dance up. No time for no anger, I'm smiling with me hands up. Hey, what they calling me? Mr. Happy Papi, Mr. Happy Papi, Mr. Happy Papi. Yeah, what they calling me? Mr. Happy Papi, Mr. Happy Papi. Cause I ever happy. Yeah. Fight for what? No, no, no. Fight for what? No, 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 no. Ignite for what? No, no, no. Nothing can get to me. Fight for what? No, no, no. Life for what? No, 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 no. None of them can take my peace, them can take my power. No, no, no. Find me on the hilltop, well composed and me intact. I tell food, no checking back. The happiest life I live in that. Positive vibes, I'm the thing that. Flags in the sky, everything shot. Enough hot girls wanna fling back. Wife, you wanna give me the ring back. But as long as you call my name, then I will answer.
Wait. Ansel, I didn't hear that line. And now hear that line. Did he just say, no hot girl fling back, wifey will give me the ring back? Is that what happened, Slim?
Mr. Happy Papi, Mr. Happy Papi, Mr. Happy Papi. Yeah, what they calling me? Mr. Happy Papi, Mr. Happy Papi. Cause I ever happy.
Yay! Listen, it's a bad song, but I'm leaving only with that song again, and I had to go back to this song. You see, this song is song of the year for me. I could listen to this whole day, whole night. This is one of the greatest I hear in a while. And I tell you last week, I'm going back to this one. This one is one of the best I hear. I tell you last week, I was feeling for a little breakfast party. They have a kind of love and a joyous feeling at a breakfast party that you don't feel nowhere else. And this song, it reached me. I hear this just before I started to record this song come out, and I ain't stopped listening to it since. And I'm leaving only on this note. This is up full. It's 2022 with plenty good things to look forward to. I know the news heavy, plenty of it. I mean, I dealing with it myself. Every time you open social media, it's something else. But this song encapsulates the fighting spirit that I feel, and that positivity fighting through them little dark clouds. I don't know if it could come better than this, you know?
Yo, are you ready? Yeah, we ready. Yeah.
Take one with me.
Just dance your stress away. Just dance bad vibes away. Just dance troubles have you down. Just dance them away. Just dance your stress away. Just dance bad vibes away. Troubles have you down. Just dance them away. And we dancing, dancing. I saw we dancing, dancing, yeah. Yes, we dancing, dancing. We dancing, yeah. So we dance, hey, come let we dance, yeah, let we dance,
Listen, I will talk to all you next week. You know, let's stay safe and dance. Just dance and dance your troubles away. I will talk to all you next week.